This episode of the Amateur Traveler podcast is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from the smart people at NerdWallet. From choosing the right travel card to dodging hidden fees, Smart Travel helps your money go further. Literally. They cover all things travel finance, like which travel cards are actually worth the annual fee and which just look shiny, how to plan group trips that don't bust your budget or your friendships, which flight deals are actually deals and which are clickbait, and when it makes sense to book your flights with cash instead of points. So they cover all the stuff we don't. And there's a reason for that. I don't know these subjects as well as the smart people at NerdWallet do. So if you're looking for information about financing your travels, check out Smart Travel. Travel smarter and spend less with the help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks to Smart Travel and NerdWallet for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Buying a car in Carvana was so easy. I was able to finance it through them.
Whoa, wait, you mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Got pre-qualified for a Carvana auto loan, entered my terms, and shot from thousands of great car options all within my budget.
That's cool, but financing through Carvana was so easy.
Financed. Done. And I get to pick up my car from their Carvana vending machine tomorrow.
Financed.
Right, that's what I said.
You can spend time trying to pronounce financing, or you can actually finance and buy your car today on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
Amateur Traveler, episode 959. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about turquoise canyon pools, a clifftop balcony trail, rescuing sea turtles, the stars in the desert, a perfume fit for royalty, and the green hills of the monsoon as we go to the country of Oman. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Oman. I'd like to welcome back to the show Max Walton from Sloths with Latitude.com, who was very recently on talking about Brunei and Sabah, but has come back to talk to us about Oman. Max, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thanks again for having me on the show. Look forward to talking to you and your listeners about my personal favorite country on earth, the wonderful Sultanate of Oman.
For you and I, it has not been that long. By the time this comes out, it'll be a couple more months. It will seem a little more spread out to people, but it feels like you were just here.
It's good to be back.
And I loved the episode we did on Brunei. You pitched me Oman, though, as your favorite country.
Yeah, it's a country that I spent some time in a couple of summers ago, and I loved it so much I actually ended up writing my university thesis or my college thesis all about the politics of Oman to kind of understand why Oman is the way it is. So it's a country that I feel really strongly about, and I spent a long time writing about it and researching. So I'm looking forward to telling you what I've learned.
Excellent. Why should someone go to Oman?
I think Oman is one of the best destinations on earth for any adventurous travelers out there looking for an authentic Middle Eastern experience that is completely different to somewhere like Dubai. There are thousands of kilometers of pristine beaches, spectacular mountains, beautiful deserts, amazing wadis, which are riverbeds with water in them, and extremely friendly and helpful locals. It's also one of the safest countries in the world with an extremely low crime rate, and it's often referred to as the Switzerland of the Middle East. So I would see Oman today as a country that is a symbol of stability in a region that is unfortunately often plagued by conflict. But it hasn't always been this way for Oman, and despite being the oldest independent state in the Arab world, with a history dating back 100,000 years, in the 1960s, Oman was extremely isolated and inward-looking, and considered one of the least developed countries in the world, with only 3 schools and just 10 kilometers of asphalt. And just 10 kilometers of asphalt surfaced roads. So in the last 60 years, the country has become massively advanced. And this is all because in 1970, the previous Sultan Qaboos, who unfortunately died a few years ago, overthrew his own father in a peaceful coup and was able to use Oman's long history of sovereignty and unique religious principles to successfully turn Oman into a developed nation that values peace and coexistence with everyone around it, funded, of course, by its vast oil fields. Now, a bit about where Oman actually is on a map. It's part of the Middle East, of course, and is located on the southeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula. It shares land borders with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, and has over 2,000 kilometers of beautiful coastline. It's effectively divided into 2 main regions. So you've got the coastal region around Muscat, which is surrounded by the northern Al-Hajjah mountains, and then a rugged desert interior inside it. It also governs the Musandam Peninsula. Chris, I know you've been there, which separates the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf, which effectively gives Oman control of the navigable portion of the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the world's most important oil transit choke points. And this is one main reason why Oman has developed into a country with good relations with everyone, because they need to have good relations with their neighbors.
Okay.
Now, the best thing about Oman, in my opinion, is that you can legally wild camp anywhere you want, apart from one place, which I'll talk about later. And it's the only way to do Oman, in my opinion. So I suggest renting a 4x4 with a roof tent and driving around the country and experiencing the beauty of Oman. Now, you could always use a normal tent and a car, but roof tents, in my opinion, are far superior, especially if you've ever used one, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're very easy to set up. We did it in 2-3 minutes, and they can be taken, of course, anywhere where your 4x4 can go. And they also provide you with extra safety from wild animals or insects, since you're above ground, unless the insects fly, of course, which you'll hear about later. And they come with large, comfortable mattresses, so it's good for everyone. Worth pointing out that Oman has rules that prohibit any buildings being taller than the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque. And so there are no skyscrapers in Oman, unlike other cities across the Gulf. And this means that Muscat has expanded sort of widthways outwards rather than upwards. So you basically do need a car in Oman. There is public transport in the cities, but outside of Muscat, buses are really limited. So unless you're with a tour group or with a guide, which can get very expensive, you basically need to hire a car. A few more things I think you should know before you visit. I would only attempt this itinerary between September and April. Oman is fearsomely hot in the summer. We went in September, and down low, it was pretty borderline in the tent. And it was cooler in the mountains. At one point at 3,000 meters camping, I was pretty cold. But yeah, if you go in winter, you're going to have a much more enjoyable time than if you go in the summer. Oman is also, of course, an Islamic country. So interesting enough, most Omanis follow the Ibadi sect of Islam, which is different to the more well-known Sunni and Shiite branches of Islam. And Ibadism has embedded principles of tolerance, cooperation, and peace into Oman's society. Please respect the local customs, of course, the laws and the religion. And it's also illegal to drink in public, although tourists can buy and drink alcohol in licensed hotels and establishments. And there are, of course, as well, strict LGBTQ plus laws to be aware of. Getting to Oman is really easy. There are direct flights from the UK or Europe, and of course, cheaper layovers through the hubs of Qatar, UAE, etc. You can stay for up to 2 weeks without a visa on a UK passport. I think it's pretty similar for most nations outside of the GCC. And if coming from the UK, you don't need any international driver's permits. Just do be aware that they drive on the right, which is the opposite of us. Now, one point that I have to emphasize is that you're closer to the equator here than you are in Europe, obviously. And that means that the sun sets far earlier than it does in the UK, for example. Now, in September, which is still pretty much summer, it was dark by about 7 o'clock in the evening. So bear this in mind when you're planning your days. Setting up tent is no fun in the dark. So you'll find that you end up waking up early, sunrise, and going to bed at sunset, which is good for the sleep schedule as well. And then Oman is also relatively quite expensive. The Omani rial is the third strongest currency in the world, so it may feel relatively expensive compared to other places on earth, but it's certainly possible to do on a budget, and it's still, in my opinion, far cheaper than Europe and America. There is a guidebook that I really recommend you pick up if you're driving around, called the Brandt Guidebook on Oman, and hopefully you can get this from your local bookshop.
Cool. Shall we talk about your itinerary?
Yeah. So I spent probably 4 or 5 months coming up with this itinerary, and in my opinion, it worked out perfectly. So I do honestly recommend this to everyone. We had the best time, and I hope you can go and enjoy this yourself. I think you need 2 weeks in Oman, but I'm aware that not everyone has 2 weeks. So if you have just 10 days, and I'll also talk about that, and also if you have just 1 week, then I will tell you where you should be going. But start off, of course, by flying into Muscat International Airport, which is the main hub for Oman. Collect a SIM card. We paid about $20 or £16 for what was more than enough data for each of us, and take out any cash that you need. Now, Oman mostly accepts card, but it's always good to have cash. So yeah, just get some out at the airport and then make your way to the accommodation. 2 ways to do this. We actually took a public bus. This is, of course, very affordable. It costs something like £1 or $1.30 per person, but just use Google Maps for the routes and schedules, and it's pretty simple. The buses are really nice, so nothing to worry about there at all. And alternatively, you can use Oman's version of Uber, which is called O-Taxi. We found Otaxi to be really reasonable, especially for shorter trips. So the 15-kilometer ride to our hotel would have been something like £10 or $12, $13. In terms of where to stay in Muscat, obviously, if you're doing this itinerary, you should be hiring a 4x4 with a roof tent. So you technically have your accommodation with you the whole time. But the Omani visa regulations say that you need proof of accommodation when you arrive. So just in case, I would suggest spending the first night in a hotel just to settle in and prepare for your adventure and get a good night's sleep as well. In terms of hotels, considering the prices, we were pretty much blown away by the quality of the hotels on offer. I would really recommend the Ramada Encore Muscat, which is about $60 or £45 a night. This was a really modern, I think it was basically brand new Western hotel that has a underground car park for your 4x4. And to get to the car park, you have a car lift. I've never been in one of those before, but you basically drive in and then it goes down with you in the car. Just keep in mind that moving a truck around an underground car park can be quite difficult at times, especially if you're not really used to using a truck. But the hotel was great, really recommended. But if you're after something a bit more special, there are lots of high-end new hotel builds being built. And I've heard really good things about the W Hotel Muscat. It's about $160 a night, along with, of course, the Ritz-Carlton, the Cheddi. There's all the big Western companies are there with their resort-style hotels, but they start at about $250 per night. So once checked in and ready, I would suggest going to get your 4x4 with a roof tent. The company I wholeheartedly recommend is a company called Active Oman. Now, it's run by a German guy called Oliver, and they were really good at organising everything for us. Get there with an Otaxi, it'll probably be about $5. They have a bunch of different types of 4x4s available at Active Oman, but we ended up with a huge V6 Mitsubishi Pajero, which, as someone that loves cars and driving, was just awesome, going from my little 1-litre car at home. And you also get given the camping equipment you need, so tables, chairs, gas cookers, etc. So they basically give you everything you need, along with the car and accommodation, and it costs something like £600 or $700, $800, not sure what that converts to, for 10 days. So for two of us, it was £1,200 for 10 days, which is relatively expensive, but when you think you're getting a 4x4 with a tent and roof tent and all the things you need to cook, I thought that was quite a good deal. So for the rest of the day, I would suggest getting used to the car and driving to some of the local beaches for a nice relax and swim. It's also a good opportunity to drive on some sand for the first time, and I promise you'll be needing those skills later. In the evening, I would suggest heading to the famous Mutra Corniche. This is home to the Mutra Souk, which is one of the best places in Oman to do some shopping in the market. I actually bought myself a traditional male Omani headdress known as the kuma, which is a colourfully embroidered brimless round cap, and the accompanying Massar headscarf as well. It cost about $10, but it was a great thing to have, and I wore it most of the holiday, actually, if I'm being honest.
I'm assuming you wore it for practical reasons, not just stylistic reasons.
Yeah, so it's the national dress of the Omani people. So it's obviously the dress that they wear when they go into the mosques, etc. So something very important for them.
Okay.
If you have time, it's also worth visiting the Mutra Fort and just enjoy walking down the Corniche. You'll see at the very end of the Corniche the private yacht of the Sultan of Oman, which happens to be the 7th largest in the world. So it's quite a piece of engineering. And I would also suggest having dinner in Mutra. So Omani food is heavily influenced by the Indian subcontinent. Historically, Oman has had long ties with the region, with the 18th century Omani Empire actually spreading to modern-day Pakistan. Today, while 60% of the population is Omani, 40% are migrants, mostly expat workers from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And as such, you can expect curries with an Arabian twist and, of course, shawarma. We went to a restaurant called Royal House, which was pretty good. I had a nice curry there, and then we drove back to the hotel.
Well, and just to put it in perspective, in terms of why you might find such connections, from Muscat to Pakistan is about 100 miles.
Yeah, it's pretty close. And the Omani Empire did spread all the way from Zanzibar to Pakistan at one point. So there are long historical connections between the nations as well. Just want to point out that parking in Oman is 99% of the time free and very easy. The only place it's not is in Mutra. There are only private car parks in Mutra, and these have to be paid for with a website with an Omani number. Now, I don't speak or read Arabic, and I didn't have an Omani number, so we weren't able to get it work. But thankfully, there was a kind family who paid it for us, which was our first glimpse at how kind and hospitable the people of Oman are. For day 2, I would then check out your hotel nice and early and make your way to the wonderful Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque. This is, in my opinion, one of the best things you can do in Muscat. Keep in mind it's only open between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Monday to Thursday, so I hope it does fit with your schedule because it's spectacular. Inside, you'll see the world's largest chandelier and some of the world's largest carpets. We recommend getting a guide at the entrance. It costs about $10 to fully learn about the mosque and the wonderful grounds as well. After the tour, they will take you to a cafe area where you'll be given the chance to learn more about Oman's unique Ibadi Islam, whilst also eating some lovely dates and some Omani coffee. And if you're interested to learn why Oman is the way it is in terms of safety, then this is a really great place to do. And the conversations I had here sparked my interest in writing about Oman academically. Afterwards, you should have a bit of time to visit another attraction of your choice in Muscat. Now, I'm actually really interested in perfumery. So we drove to the Amouage perfume factory, where you can get a free tour to learn about one of the world's most exclusive and expensive perfume houses. They're made primarily for the Sultan at the beginning. So bottles start at something like $300 for 100 milliliters. So very expensive, but really interesting tour. Alternatively, you can visit the Royal Opera House in Muscat, which is supposed to be very beautiful. We didn't go, and if it does align with the opera performance, then it's probably a really good thing to do. Or you can go to one of Muscat's museums. Now, once again, we didn't go to the National Museum, but it's supposed to be really good for those wanting to learn more about Oman's fascinating 100,000-year history. So there's a lot to learn there. And having studied it, it's really interesting. So I do recommend going there. You could also, of course, go back to the beach if you'd rather do that. So this will probably take you to about lunchtime. And I would suggest thinking about getting ready for the start of your road trip now. So before leaving Muscat, make sure you are well stocked with food, water, and fuel. I think that goes for every day. Just please make sure you have enough food, water, and fuel because it's a big country and just be stocked up. Now, in my opinion, Chris, Oman has some of the best supermarkets in the world. I'm talking even better than the legendary Japanese stores. I'm not sure if you've been to them, but they have a chain.
Sure.
They are pretty good, but there's one called Lulu's in Oman, and it's everywhere. And we loved it. Everything you could ever want there for really good prices. And they have a fantastic selection of food available for you. So $1 shawarmas or loads of delicious curries, mimosas, etc. So we actually ended up eating there every day. Really affordable, really delicious, and always in the towns that you drive through. So a great place to stock up for food, water, and fuel as well. And then once you have all you need, please take more water than you think you will need. Start your road trip with the first destination being the Wadi Deka Dam. This takes about 1 hour, 30 minutes from Muscat. And as you're driving into the mountains, this will give you a great idea of what you can expect over the next couple of days.
Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
So arrive at the Wadi Deka Dam, enjoy the beautiful scenery. It's magnificent, especially if the sun is setting when you get there, and make your way to a nearby campsite. On Google, we stayed at a place called Camping Ground near Wadi Al Arbin and Deka Dam. All these campsites are in my blog post about this journey. But once again, you can park wherever you want in Oman, and that's the best thing about it. So if you pull over somewhere and you think this is it, this is where I want to stay the night, do it. No one's going to stop you. Where we stayed was really nice, however, mountains behind you, and just set up camp and enjoy being completely alone in nature. Now, I do want to say that whilst it was a very nice campsite, we unfortunately woke up with a rather large hornet in our tent and a bunch of hornets outside of our tent. So we had some moments of subsequent chaos and panic, but I think and I hope this was just bad luck. We weren't stung or anything, but do keep in mind that you are in the middle of nowhere now, so there may be some animals around you. So have a good night's sleep there, and then wake up nice and early the next morning with the sunrise, pack up early, and then go to a nearby wadi called Wadi Al Arbreen. Now, this is, in my opinion, one of the best wadis you can visit in Oman. The drive here is along an off-road track, but this is nothing you or your 4x4 can't handle, so do not worry about it. And once you're there, you'll be greeted by the most beautiful green turquoise water that you will probably ever have seen. It's just stunning. There are mountains around you, and this is a great place to just enjoy the water, swim, relax, probably clean yourself as well because you haven't had a shower. And there is a hike nearby, but it was in September too hot for us to go and do the hike. Now, if you go winter, this would probably be a great thing to do. So we just stayed there and enjoyed the water, got very sunburnt, so please do put sun cream on. And we also met a very nice Omani man who wanted to show us just all the areas he could swim. So it was really fun. And then once you've enjoyed your time there, I would leave Wadi Al Arbreen, going back the same way on the track and reaching a place called Bima Sinkhole. This is a huge sinkhole near to the sea, and it's a great place for you to swim, and there are cliff diving opportunities, cliff jumping opportunities if you're feeling very brave. And there are fish as well in the sinkhole, but they are the ones that will try and eat your feet and nibble at your feet, so just keep that in mind. But it does feel quite nice. And then for the last leg of the day, head to the area around White Sand Beach. Now, I'd suggest you sleep here as well. So just find somewhere that you like. Looks good. I'm going to park there and just enjoy being 20 meters from the beach with the mountains all around you. I went snorkeling in there, and there were some turtles swimming around me. Now, the water was actually quite murky because of the waves and the sands, but I popped my head up, and about 1 meter away from me, a turtle also popped his head up, which was quite a fun moment. Yeah, like I said, just choose anywhere that's nice. No one's going to stop you from parking wherever you want, and then just enjoy. So get another good night's sleep, and then wake up the next morning nice and early to go to one of Oman's most famous wadis, which is known as Wadi Shab. Now, you want to get there nice and early to avoid the crowds, and if you're there when it's getting hot, it won't be as much fun, so get there to avoid the heat as well. Now, this wadi is far more popular than Wadi Al Arbreen, just because it's so accessible from Muscat. So it's a really good one to do. And if you're camping near White Sand Beach, you will only be about 10 minutes away anyway.
Before you go too much further, you were talking about avoiding the heat. I don't know that I remember if you told us what time of year you were visiting.
Yeah, we went in September. Just to tell everyone again, September is probably the closest to summer you want to be there. It didn't ruin the holiday at all. It was awesome. But I think going September would not be as good as going November, December, January time. Just keep in mind as well, if you go in winter, there'll be more people. So the experience may be more crowded. But yeah, we went in September.
Okay.
And it does get blooming hot in September. So once you arrive at Wadi Shab, pack everything you need for a hike and a swim. So if you're comfortable with swimming, this is a great thing to do. It takes about 30 minutes to reach the famous cave section. And this will involve taking a speedboat for 10 seconds across the river, and then hiking, and then walking, and then swimming. So you pay 1 rial in cash each way for the boat, and then just follow the path, and probably the people around you as well, all the way to the end. It's pretty obvious where to go, but if you're not sure, just ask someone. We were actually adopted by a local guide and his tour group who showed us the way for free, and it was really nice that they did that for us. Once you reach the famous cave, which is where you're trying to reach, you've got to swim through a small little crack and you enter a big cavern with the most incredible blue water that you'll see. There's a rope that you can climb up and you can do some jumping off into the water. And it's just amazing there. And I actually lost my GoPro here, so that was less fortunate.
Oh, no.
But one member of our tour group that adopted us, or just took us along, happened to be a free diver. So he ended up finding it for me again. So that was a good thing. But if you've got a GoPro, bring it in because it's a really good place to take some photos and some videos. Now, I'd say stay as long as you like. Today is a more relaxed day. So just when you're ready, swim, walk, and boat your way back to your car. Now, please do note that there are lots of goats in Oman, and do not be surprised if you come back to find goats on top of your car. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Okay.
You will then want to put Ras Al Jins into your sat-nav. The drive will take about 1 hour 30, and we recommend stopping off by the port town of Sur. Sur has a Lulu's as well, so this is a great place for you to get some food as well, and just enjoy Sur because it's a really nice little fishing town. They have traditional boats in the harbour, and it's a very nice little place. Now, you're heading to Ras Al Jins and the nearby Ras Al Had for one reason. And these are the most eastern places in the Arabian Peninsula, and they are pretty out there in the middle of nowhere. It feels a bit like the Wild West at times there, but they're one of the best places in the world to see turtles. So in the evening, we recommend an official turtle watching tour at the Ras Al Jins Turtle Reserve, which can be booked in for about £16, $20 per person. And you just go to the centre and you'll be able to book it there. This begins at 8:30, and it's one of the most popular things you can do in Oman. And if I'm being brutally honest, it was worth doing, but it's definitely worth doing because you'll see turtles. But our experience was ruined by the other guests on the tour. We were told repeatedly not to shine your torch, not to use flash, etc. when filming the turtles. And the guests in our group, at least, weren't able to understand that they shouldn't be doing that. So it ended up with the guide getting angry, and they ruined the tour a little bit. But we did see lots of turtles, so it wasn't a waste. But just be aware that it might be ruined by the guests in your group. So nevertheless, it's definitely worth doing. But tomorrow is going to be even better. I'll get to that in a sec. But because you've got your roof tent in your car, I suggest just camping outside the Turtle Reserve. Now, the beaches of the Ras Al Jins Turtle Reserve are the only place in the country that you cannot wild camp on. It's completely illegal, so please do not do that. Instead, just camp outside the Turtle Reserve gates, and then there's no problems at all. And this will probably finish at about 10, 11 o'clock. So obviously, it's dark at this point, but I want you to wake up the next morning before the sun rises. Remember that you're in the most eastern place in the Gulf, so the sun will rise very early. And you want to head north to this town of Ras Al Had, which I mentioned earlier. And you want to go to the eastern beaches to see the turtles yourself. We ended up actually going to the northern beaches of Ras Al Had. If you look on a map, you'll see what I mean about the northern and the eastern side. And we saw no turtles because we went to the wrong bit. And we eventually realized that we were at the wrong part, went down to the eastern bit, and we saw that it was maybe about 6:30, 7 o'clock at this time. And we had seen that there had been mother turtles in the sand, and they'd obviously done their thing and left. And we were a bit disappointed until we were just about to leave, and I saw at the corner of my eye a little turtle, baby turtle, walking the wrong way. And we went, oh my gosh, look at him, let's go and save him. And we actually spent the next 2 hours finding all these poor little baby turtles who had gone the wrong way, away from the water. And we spent 2 hours saving over 15 baby turtles and bringing them into the water. So that was a really amazing experience, and there was no tourists around us, no one around us at all. And it was amazing to be able to do that, and it's a real privilege to be able to save so many baby turtles. Yeah. And then once you've saved all those that need saving, you want to head to Wadi Bani Khalid, which is another wadi. I would go via Sur Lulu again, stock up on food and water, because you have a 3-hour long drive on big highways with nothing around you to Wadi Bani Khalid. There is a petrol station near Wadi Bani Khalid, but I would also suggest fueling up in Sur and then fueling up again in the petrol station by Wadi Bani Khalid, because afterwards you'll be going to the desert. Once you make it to Wadi Bani Khalid, it's one of the easiest wadis to access, just a nice, easy tarmac road up to it. It's pretty obvious what you've got to do. Just follow the river and follow some other people probably, and you'll be greeted by a wonderful wadi, beautiful water. And there's also a bridge, which I recommend jumping off from if you enjoy that sort of thing. I did that a lot. After a refreshing swim, you're going to be off to the desert. Now, I cannot stress this enough, but please do not leave Wadi Bani Khalid later than 1500 or 3 o'clock, as you will need 1 hour to get to the town of Bidia, which is on the edge of the desert, and another hour to get to your desert campsite for the night. So yeah, please do not leave too late, or else you will not be able to make it into the desert. Once you reach Bidia, you can have your vehicle tires deflated at the petrol station. This is essential for driving in the desert. And don't worry too much about the tire pressures, because the workers there will know, the guys at the pumps will know what to do. But yeah, this is essential for driving in the desert, or else you'll be stuck. And once again, just please make sure you have more fuel, more water, and more food than you think you will need. Now, when ready, it's time to begin your journey through the desert to the camp, to your campsite, which I suggest is a nice tree about 1 kilometer away from an actual desert camp called the Thousand Nights Camp. Now, they're very expensive, And because you've got a tent, I would suggest just doing your own thing. And this campsite is about 40 kilometers away from the town of Bidia. So you're going really into the desert. The drive to the campsite is pretty straightforward. You basically follow the signs to 1,000 Nights Camp, and you're on a big main road. It's not really a main road, but it's a track, but we'll call it a main road that goes all the way into the desert. And eventually you'll see a sign saying 1,000 Nights Camp left, and you'll have to go up a hill and along a ridge. Now, this ridge has the potential for you to get yourself into some trouble with the sand. We didn't get stuck or anything like that, and it is very doable. Just as long as you have your tires done properly and you don't stop and don't brake too hard in the sand, then you'll be okay. And it may sound scary, all of this, but the drive is unbelievable through the dunes. You'll pass camels, you'll pass more dunes, but just respect the sand driving. Now, of course, if you're not feeling comfortable with driving yourself through the desert, then I would suggest getting in contact with someone online who can come as a tour guide. Now, we didn't do this, but there are people out there that offer this service, so you could then drive in convoy together and have the security of someone with you. There are 2 or more cars that will approach you when you enter the desert road to the camp. Now, we had a big 4x4 Jeep pull up next to us, and a man who was a local from the village tried to convince us that what we were about to do was too dangerous. We had been warned of these guys by the team at Active Oman, who said these guys will approach you and they will tell you this, but it's not too dangerous. But what we did do is I took his number just in case something did happen. So I would still recommend taking this guy's number, or if you don't feel comfortable with driving yourself into the desert, then going with a guide. Not necessarily these guys that come to you, but finding someone online. But like I said, don't worry about it. It's an amazing drive, and it's one of the most cool things I've ever done, sleeping in the desert 50 kilometers away from any town or village under the stars, and it's just amazing. Now,
the one thing that I thought was interesting as I look at Google Maps for this area is when I picture desert and sand, in this case is the kind of desert we're talking about here, I picture dunes going all over the place. But this almost looked like someone took a rake and raked the sand from north to south so that all of the dunes are parallel.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know the reason behind that, but I presume it's the wind, the way the wind blows it all.
I assume so too, but I've never seen something quite so organized, as it were.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And if you're seeing on the map, it will say a road on maps, but it's not a road. It's this big path that I'm talking about. And it just goes straight through 2 ridges, let's say, of sand. And at some point, you'll turn left off that road onto one of the ridges. And this is where I was saying, just be a bit careful and you'll come back down again. But yeah, basically straight on this road with these 2 huge ridges either side. And it's amazing. So one of the best drives of my life. Now it's the desert, so it's obviously very hot in the day. So I suggest getting there 5, 6 o'clock and then just getting yourself ready before it gets dark. And in the morning, get out of the desert before it's too hot again as well. Once again, the route home is pretty clear. You will get to a point where there's quite a steep descent. Now, once again, this is totally doable, but please don't brake in the car with your foot brake, because that's how you increase the chance of you getting stuck. But once again, don't worry about it. Super easy.
Now, how did you know that? Did they tell you this when you picked up the car?
So I'd never done any desert driving myself before, but I had spoken.
Right.
I spoke to the guy.
There aren't a lot of deserts in London.
No.
So
I'm not looking at a desert right now. And I spoke to the guys at Active Oman about this place because it was something that I was a bit conscious about. And this is why I know about these guides, because I had originally spoken to someone online on WhatsApp about organising it. But then we went to the guys at Active Oman and they said, no, don't worry about it. This is where you should camp and just drive it this way. Just make sure you do your wheels. And then I did some basic research on desert driving where it just says don't brake, because if you brake, then you're more likely to get stuck. So as long as you follow the basic rules and respect the sand driving, then it will be okay.
And did your 4x4 come equipped with shovel or winch or anything else that you would need if you did get stuck?
Yeah, so we had a shovel. We didn't have a winch on the car, but there are reports of people having to shovel themselves out, which is why I'm just saying be a bit careful. But honestly, if you're not comfortable with it, then do it, but do it with another car and convoy with you. That way you get to do it yourself because it's so rewarding and there's less risk then as well. Now, you want to leave the desert the next day as soon as you can because it obviously gets pretty hot. But yeah, make your way home. And then once you're out of the desert, go back to the service station, please, and inflate your tires, because obviously they have been deflated and you don't want to be driving your truck
Right.
on deflated tires. After Bidia, we will be heading to the beautiful city of Nizwa. Now, it's the old capital of Oman, so it's a very important historical city for Oman, and it has one of the best souks or markets in the country, which is of course known as the Nizwa souk. And it's a really traditional and authentic market experience. Nizwa is very famous for its silver. So I bought a lovely silver necklace there. And there's also a very famous Nizwa fort there and a castle, which is definitely worth a visit as well. Now, I'd say enjoy Nizwa. And then you want to head up to the mountain village of Saik at about 3-4 o'clock. It's a pretty easy drive. They won't let you on if you've got a two-wheel front-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive car. But because you're on a 4x4, don't worry about that. But there is a checkpoint where they will look at your car and not let you in if you're not driving a suitable car. But the drive is one of these is thus far. It's just a big tarmac road, but just something to be aware of. And there's a place up here called Diana's Viewpoint. Now, Lady Diana, from Britain, of course, once visited here, and they named this wonderful viewpoint after her. And if you go on our Sloths of Latitude website, the front cover of our blog is a photo of this view. And we camped nearby, and it was just an amazing experience. The sun sets over the mountains, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So a really nice place to camp for the night, and then just enjoy being at altitude. I think it's something like 2,500 meters at this point. So that's really good fun as well. Now, after a night in the mountains, you're going to be going to some even higher mountains the next day. So spend the next morning / early afternoon in and around Nizwa. Now, if it's a Friday, make sure you go to the Nizwa goat market, please. We weren't able to go there, but as we went on another day, but it looks like a really unique experience. It's basically where the local traders and farmers buy their goats from. So there'll be lots of goats, lots of people trying to buy goats. And I think as a tourist, it's probably a pretty good experience. You can always go back to the souk as well, buy some more gifts. And I do recommend visiting a UNESCO World Heritage Site known as Bala Fort, which is near Nizwa. And it's widely believed to be very haunted. So it's worth a visit if you're into that sort of thing. Now, we didn't go inside, but it's very beautiful on the outside. And I would say if you're here for a 7-day itinerary, this is probably a good time to head back to Muscat. But for everyone else, Bala is en route for the next destination, which is the high peaks. So once ready, make your way to the highest peak in Oman, which is known as Jebel Shams. It'll take about 2 hours, but it's a really awesome mountain road up here.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors: tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic AG1 Original with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in 1 convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
And now you can't camp at the very top or the peak. So we recommend parking or camping at the suitably named Jebel Shams campsite, which is on Google Maps. And it's actually home to the 2nd deepest canyon in the world. Now, as an American, Chris, you'll know that the Grand Canyon is, of course, the biggest and deepest in the world. But the 2nd deepest is in Oman, which is something that I don't think anyone really knows. And there were no tourists there or anything. It's just us. And you're camping there overlooking this monster canyon just by yourself. So really good place to visit. Just once again, there are goats here and they will try to eat everything. So please don't leave anything around your car at night. So that's a good day. But next day, you'll be waking up nice and early, again, to avoid the heat. And you'll be starting, if you're up for it, a 2-hour trek known as the W6 balcony hike, which basically loops around the canyon, keeping the canyon to your right the whole time. And you'll have a really good view of this canyon. Now, like I said, do it early, please, just to avoid the heat because it can get hot. But it's only a 10-minute drive to the start from where you're camping, and it's only takes about an hour each way, this hike. So if you started at a suitable time, you'll be avoiding any heat. And yeah, it gives you fantastic views of the 2nd largest canyon in the world. So it's something that we really enjoyed. Once you have finished the hike, we recommend driving to another wadi called Wadi Dam. And you can find this on Google. The maps will take you on an off-road drive, or it took us there at least. And I think there's multiple ways to reach it, but we ended up doing some pretty hardcore off-roading. But if you're up for it, it's an amazing drive again. And the truck is obviously doing it without any issues. And the views from this off-road that maps took us down was amazing. You'll arrive at Wadi Dam for lunch. And having parked, it's about a 30-minute hike into a beautiful tree and plant-covered wadi. So it's the first one that we've seen where there are plants around the wadi, and it was a beautiful place to just have a wash and a shower in the natural waterfalls and things like that. Afterwards, you want to aim for the mountain village of Balad Seat. Now, this is a pretty special place, and I suggest camping at a place called Balad Seat View Camping Area, which is a beautiful ridge overlooking the mountains. Maps will give you 2 routes for this journey, so we suggest the longer motorway route, as over it will be quicker. The other way is 4x4, but you'll get stuck and you'll be going 5 miles an hour or something like that. So definitely take the motorway. And this is a good time, I think, to mention that the region, even in summer or even September when we went, can experience flash floods. So if you're ever camping in a wadi, be aware of the risks of flash flooding.
Right.
And even in September, when we were driving on the motorway, it suddenly started pouring down with rain and the roads were flooding. And we got to, not on the motorway, but a road where there were cars not able to cross the road anymore because a river had formed on the road. Now, we were okay in our truck, but yeah, so it comes out of nowhere and it stops out of nowhere as well. But that is something to really be aware of as well.
Sure.
Once you get to your camping area, just rock up for the night and enjoy the views. Now, for day 9, I suggest going to the famous Snake Canyon. Now, it's not named Snake Canyon because of its inhabitants. It's named this because of its formation. So nothing to be worried about. This is a fantastic experience, and the tour will start at 8:30. So you make sure you leave your campsite early enough. We used a guide for our canyoning called Sultan, and he organised it all for us, and we paid for a 5-hour tour, which is the Big Snake Canyon, which is what we recommend, about £70 or $90. I thought this was great value because it was a really exciting thing to do. And you basically go abseiling, cliff jumping, going through the rivers of this amazing canyon with a guide. And then...
So this is real canyoneering.
Canyoneering, yeah.
Yeah.
So abseiling, cliff jumping, natural water slides, etc. And then after the tour, Sultan took us to his house and we had lunch there. And we were then given a tour of his village of Balad Seat, which is really nice to see. We learned about how they produce dates, and it was really fun to get a tour around the typical Omani village down deep in the mountains. There is also a soccer or football field here that Audi, the car company, once used to film a commercial. And you're driving along, and I'm a big football soccer fan, and then there's this awesome football pitch that just appears out of nowhere in the middle of the mountains of Oman at 2,000 meters. So a great opportunity to take some photos of possibly the most scenic and beautiful football soccer pitch on earth. And then, your tour will end at sort of 2:00. And this will give you enough time to then drive to the next place, which is a town called Dabouf. But there's nothing special about Dabouf per se, but the journey to Dabouf is via a road called the Wadi Ban Auf Crossing. And this is one of the best roads in Oman. It's pretty awesome 4x4 driving. If you're comfortable with it, then definitely do it. If not, you can leave Balad Seat and go the other way around the motorway to where you're trying to go. But if you're comfortable with the 4x4 driving, then do it. It's the most awesome drive I've ever done. Just take it slowly, use your low gears in the automatic box, and you'll be rewarded with some of the best driving of your life. You'll end up at the town of Dabouf, and you'll want to camp here as well. Just find somewhere nice and enjoy the beautiful views of Jebel Shams, which is the canyon in the mountain that we were staying at earlier. Now, for the final day on the road trip, you want to head back to Muscat via one of my favorite wadis, which is Wadi Hokan. You want to spend as much time as you like here, and just make sure you swim up as far as you can in the wadi, because it gets better and better the further you go from the car park. And then once you're ready, make your way back to Muscat, which will take about 1 hour 30. If you're leaving Oman today on day 10, then drop off the car at Active Oman. But if you're planning to carry on, which is what I suggest you do, either if you're planning on taking a night bus on the next day, then go to the bus station in a place called Rusail and get your tickets for the night bus for the next day. when we go down to Salalah.
Mm-hmm.
Do this the day before. You can't do it online with a foreign card, or we couldn't at least with our cards. So just make sure you go to the bus station. It costs about £25 for a night bus to Salalah, which I'll talk about more in a sec. We were scuba diving the next day. So obviously if you're scuba diving, you can't fly, which is why we took the night bus. But there is also the opportunity to fly, of course, direct from Muscat to Salalah, which is where we're headed. Now, with all the logistics sorted for the bus, if you've got to do that, I would head back into Muscat for anything that you may have originally missed. And if you're a fan of perfume, like I mentioned I was earlier, we actually went to a place called G Perfume, where you can make your own perfume. It costs about £10 or $15. And we've now, my girlfriend and I both have our own bottles of perfume that we made in Oman, which is quite a fun and unique thing to do. Alternatively, go and do anything you missed in Muscat, like we previously talked about. Tomorrow, I would suggest heading to the beautiful Daymaniat Islands. Now, these are often called the Maldives of the Middle East. We suggest camping near a small port area of Muscat known as Al Mouj, as the tour will probably depart from here. And there are lots of nice restaurants around here as well. So it's a great place to park up. We went to a Lebanese restaurant, which I didn't really enjoy. I'm not going to recommend it to anyone, so I'm not going to tell you the name. But if there's a Lebanese restaurant that is near the Al Mouj Centre, then don't go there, because I felt like it was way too overpriced and not the nicest stuff. But yeah, that's the only bad experience we had. Now, get a good night's sleep. And the last day in the north is a beautiful one. So even if you don't scuba dive, I suggest you go and do this and go for a snorkeling trip or even a boat tour to these islands, the Maldives of the Middle East. So they're very beautiful. And I recommend, if you're scuba diving, Mola Diving Centre. It's quite expensive diving in Oman, £120 for 2 dives. But we went because, for one main reason, which was to see if we could see any whale sharks along the way, because it was whale shark season when we were there.
Okay.
Now, we reckon we saw whale sharks in the distance. The driver didn't want to stop, so unfortunately we weren't able to see them, which is really annoying. But we did go on a nice scuba dive anyway, and we saw some turtles. But I've still yet to see whale sharks, and we reckon we could have seen them had the driver cooperated, but alas. And you'll get back at about 2:00. Now, I know that in September when we went, the Daymaniat Islands weren't open for camping because of the turtles, etc. If you go in wintertime, I'm pretty sure you can stay the night there. So that's definitely something to look into, because they're spectacular, and it's going to be pretty awesome to camp on a small little island in the middle of nowhere, if you're up for that. Now, you'll go back at about 2:00, and now is probably time, if you're on the 2-week itinerary, to head back to Active Oman and return your truck. Don't worry too much about minor damage to the car, is what I'd say. We had a few scratches from stones and deserts, from the mountain driving, etc., but nothing was a problem. So yeah, sort out your stuff, give back the car, make sure you've got everything. And then when everything's done, make your way to the bus stop with some food, as the night bus to Salalah will leave at 1700. Like I said, if you didn't dive, you can also just fly to Salalah, because that's much easier. Now, the next 3 days of the itinerary will take you to southern Oman in a region known as Dhofar, which is very close to the Yemeni border. Salalah is beautiful all year round, which is the main city in Dhofar. But if you're here between May and September, there's a period called the Kharif monsoon season, and it will be as green as England, as green as places that are usually green, and it looks nothing like the Middle East. And the best way to see this, if you have access to the BBC, David Attenborough recently filmed an episode for a series called Asia, and in episode 2, he shows Salalah going from normal Middle Eastern deserts and mountains to completely green, except there are camels everywhere. So it's an amazing place to go. And if you are there in May or September time, like we were, then do go down to Salalah. But if it's not green, it's still beautiful, and it's definitely worth a visit. So you'll arrive in the morning if you're on the night bus, and get a taxi to the airport and pick up another car. Now, you won't need a 4x4 for this section of the journey, so just get a cheap 2-wheel drive car and then make your way to your hotel. I thoroughly recommend the Salalah Gardens Hotel. It costs about $75 a night, but it was really nice, and it was nice to be in a hotel having camped for the last week. And we stayed there, it was perfect, and they had a lovely breakfast buffet as well, which was really good. Alternatively, you can also stay at a place called the Al Balid Resort Salalah by Anatarara, which is a big famous hotel chain, but this comes up to $350, $400 a night, which was a bit out of our budget, but it looks like a nice place. Now, before we discuss the itinerary for Salalah, I would say that Salalah has probably the most camels out of any place per square kilometre in the world. You'll come across lots of camels on the road, and take your time and be particularly careful when driving at night, please, because there are lots of reports of people driving into camels at night, and camels are pretty big. So if you're in a little car, it's not going to end very well. Now, once ready then, you may be a bit tired. We had a little siesta after our night bus. Make your way to the wonderful Wadi Darbat. It's one of the most beautiful wadis in the country, actually. And unlike the ones in the north, you can't swim here due to there's some sort of bacteria in the water. But it's an amazing place, and it's one of the highlights of Dhofar and Salalah. After this, I would then drive to the Jabal Saman viewpoint, which, if the weather is good, will give you amazing views of the mountains of Dhofar and the sea around you. And then, just for a bit of fun, there's a place called Gravity Hill Point. Now, it's one of these places where if you drive your car, you leave your car neutral, you'll go uphill. It's obviously it's not actually going uphill, but it looks like one of those. So that's quite a little fun place to park in neutral and just watch your car roll up a hill. And then afterwards, I would head back to Salalah. Or if you're very interested in history, there's a place called Mirbat nearby, which is very famous for the Battle of Mirbat, which happened during the Dhofar Rebellion in the 60s and 70s. But that maybe is a bit niche. Now, for dinner, there are 2 restaurants in Salalah that I really, really loved. I was after camel. I've never eaten camel before, and camel is probably my favorite meat on earth, having eaten it now. And there are these groups of restaurants called restaurant number 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10, where they're basically a street of restaurants of local eateries. And I definitely recommend restaurant number 9 and number 10. Just look up that on Google and you'll find them. And they have camel burgers for something like 3 rial, which is £1, $1.50 for camel burgers. So that's really affordable. I actually had 2, and it was delicious. And then get an early night. Tomorrow is probably the best day of my life. So it's a lot of driving, but you want a good night's sleep, because on your final day, you're heading west to the Oman-Yemeni border. Now, your goal is to make it to the border, but please consider the current political situations depending on when you're going. It's an open border. There's an open border between Oman and Yemen, and it's safe. But the situation in Yemen is ever changing, and in the region as well. So you can never guarantee 100% safety. So if you do want to do this, then just keep that in mind, please. Like I said, it's an amazing part of the world. So if you want to do it and you can do it and it's safe to do it, then do it. But just keep that all in mind, please. You want to leave as early as you can. It takes about 2.5 hours to drive to the first stop, which is a petrol station 3 kilometers away from the Yemeni border. And whilst you're driving towards Yemen, effectively, there are some border crossing stations. There are some checkpoints that you'll have to pass. So bring your passport, and the soldiers there will check your passport and let you through. But it's just another reminder of where you're heading. But it's amazingly eerie there. Now, in September, we went there, and it's foggy and it's cloudy and it's mysterious. And it's a beautiful place. It's green, and it gives you an insight into what Yemen would be like, which is somewhere I'd love to go one day. But you make it to a petrol station near the border crossing station, which is probably close enough, if I'm being honest. And then have a look over the mountains, you'll see Yemen. And then head down to the Dalkut beach, where you'll find an old Russian Mi-8 helicopter, which was crash landed in the 60s. And there's a wreckage there on the beach, which is quite interesting. I'm interested in aeroplanes, so I thought that was fun. And then make your way back along the road that you came into from Salalah. There's a few places to stop off on the way, including a blowhole place called Muxail Beach Blowholes. And hard to explain what blowholes are, but they're holes in the ground that water comes in, and then water squirts upwards. I mean, it's quite unique. So that's definitely fun. And then finally, I'd head back to Salalah Beach. And near Salalah Beach, there is a banana and coconut shop that is like a McDonald's drive-through for bananas. So you rock up in your car, and they come to your window and they give you bananas and coconuts, and then you eat them. So that was like the Salalah version of McDonald's, which was quite good fun as well. And then for dinner, head back to either restaurant 9 or 10, depending on which one you went to the night before. But yeah, just like I said earlier, do bring your passports. You'll drive through military checkpoint 4 times that day. So just have your documentation with you. Now, fortunately, the next day is the final day of your time in Oman, so day 14. We had a very early flight the next day, so we didn't have any time to do anything that day. But depending on your flight, you may want to consider visiting the local beaches or the markets in Salalah as well. If it's Kharif or the summer monsoon season, you cannot swim, but I know that in winter you can swim. And apparently the beaches in Dhofar and Salalah in winter are absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, that's Oman. We had the best time, and I would recommend it to anyone that wants something a little bit different and to learn about a culture that is quite unknown to many. So thank you.
Excellent. Anything else we need to know before we get to some of our wrap-up questions?
No, just once again, it gets hot in the summer, so don't go in July, please.
Yep.
Unless you're going to Salalah. I know that Salalah in July is basically the best time to go, but it's a very common time for people from the Gulf to go to Salalah in the summer because they want to escape the heat of the desert, and they go to Karif where it's green and it's nice in Salalah. But other than that, enjoy it. It's the best place I've ever been, and I'm sure you'll have a lovely time.
Excellent. Our wrap-up questions. You're standing in the prettiest spot in all of the places you were in Oman. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
The whole place is beautiful, right? But it's got to be probably Jebel Lakhdar, which is Diana's viewpoint, which we talked about earlier, which, like I said...
Which is why I made it on the front cover of your blog. Okay.
Yeah, because it's stunning.
That makes sense.
And also Salalah when it's green, because you're there. I didn't expect it to be like that. And it looks like the UK when you're driving along, except there are camels everywhere. A great place as well.
And more palm trees than I remember seeing in the UK.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Oman.
Now, besides the goats eating our car in the middle of the night, I would personally say when we were in the desert, 40 kilometers away from the nearest town, I had 5G on my phone. And I think as someone who has now studied Oman, knowing that 60 years ago, this country only had 3 schools and 10 kilometers of road, but now I'm there in the middle of the desert with 5G. I didn't have 5G at my house in London. It was just amazing. So it was a really good moment to understand how far the country has come in just such a short amount of time.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize the country in just 3 words, what 3 words would you choose?
Peaceful, humble, and varied, I'd say.
Interesting. Excellent. Our guest again has been Max Walton, and the website again, and I've been looking at this blog post here on slothswithlatitude.com on the ultimate 2-week adventure in Oman. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can find it as well. Cool. Max, thanks so much for coming back on the show and sharing with us your obvious love for Oman.
Thank you very much, Chris. An absolute pleasure.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. If you're interested in traveling with me because of last week's episode you heard on Turkmenistan and want to go to Turkmenistan, then go to amateurtraveler.com/trips to learn more about the Amateur Traveler trip to Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan in May of 2026. Or just drop me an email if that's easier. New blog posts at amateurtraveler.com. Since the last show, I think I talked about the exploring the Gannan Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, being in Tibet without being in Tibet. If not, that blog post is up. That finishes up the 3 parts about that recent 2-week China trip, and then also one about the Peruvian Amazon, the definition of adventure travel that has pictures of some of the birds I saw and some of the animals, and I think you'll enjoy that read. Go to amateurtraveler.com for those, and with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
New season, new chaos in college football.
Let's go! Big stage, big opportunity.
This Labor Day weekend, the wildness lives on ABC, ESPN, and the all-new ESPN app.
What a way to start!
Featuring top 10 teams like Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, and LSU, and Bill Belichick's debut at North Carolina.
It's so special when these teams collide.
Don't miss a lineup filled with electric matchups.
Welcome back to college football.
Kickoff week presented by Modelo. Labor Day weekend on ESPN and ABC. Also available to stream on the all-new ESPN app.